Hello everyone, welcome to week 7, I would say module 7. I know we're a little off on our PowerPoint presentations in regards to our chapters, so this is a little unique of a chapter because I kind of added it on my own because I think it's so important, but I wanted to ask you a brief question before we jumped into the lecture. I'm sure you know who this is. Of course, it's Winston Churchill, and I want you to think a little bit about his leadership style and what he has in common with the next person. You are already aware who this is as well. Hopefully you know your history. Pretty important. Abraham Lincoln, also an effective leader. What's the same thing that could be said about these two leaders? So think about that a little bit more. Finally, I'm sure you're aware of this, who this person is, Martin Luther King Jr. One thing that I would say about all three of these individuals, leaders, they're very, very effective communicators. And that's something that I think they learned at a young age. So communication and leadership mesh really, really closely together. And I want you to be aware of that as you start to look at the material. This is a PowerPoint that I borrowed from someone, so definitely don't take credit for it. The credit will be given at the end in the reference section, but this is not something that you're going to be graded on your final exam or anything, but I thought it would be important to look at it. It's used actually for an MBA program, so communication and leadership kind of go hand in hand. So how do you develop positive communication so you can be an effective leader? You see that from all leaders, within groups or programs or institutions. They all have a way of communicating that encourages an effective process within their team, and I think that's really important for you to understand moving forward. Your communication style between subsets of groups may be different. However, your goal should be the same. You should be able to reach them and get them to understand what you're trying to say, how you're trying to say it, and what the meaning and goal is of your speech or your written outcomes that you want to fulfill. Also make sure that we respect the diversity of everyone in their communication, and listening process. So as you're speaking to a group, know your audience, make sure they understand that you care about them, and make sure they understand that you care about their differences. So what opportunities should I practice for effective interpersonal communication skills? Why is it important to practice effective interpersonal communication skills, and why is it important to respect diversity is what we'll review. So communication, of course, is the process of conveying a message. We've already said this in numerous chapters, so you understand this slide in general. But how does that intertwine with leadership is the question that I hope to answer in this PowerPoint. Sometimes you need effective communication, of course, to secure a job, to make sure you have successful employment, to share successfully your feelings, ideas, facts, or opinions with other people. When you have poor communication in general, you can have a really bad job or a really bad outcome at your job, whether that's a leadership position or a position that doesn't require a lot of followers per se. However, I think in general, most people that are in a job or everyday function need effective communication skills to convey effective structure and effective thought process behind their verbal or written communication. Here are the 7 C's of effective business communication. And this is effective in leadership communication. So when you watch these videos that I've posted, you're going to see a lot of that in regards to how people are speaking, what they're saying. It's really important to follow that dynamic. So first, people correct with what they're saying. So what they're saying is, out there as fact rather than just a thought process. Sometimes you can speak about thought process if you're, delivering a science message or, have a theory to go over, but most of the time it's correctness that people perceive as accurate. Complete, so they're accurate in their completion of what they're saying, so they don't just talk about a part of the picture, they talk about the full picture so you understand it from point A all the way to point B, and there's no confusion in between. Their element is they're concise in their speech, so they don't go on and on with details that might bore their audience or get their audience to kind of divert in the mental process from what they're saying. They're clear with their speech. You can understand them. They don't have slang. They speak very directly, and it comes across clear. They're concrete in what they're saying as well. They're courteous, and they have consideration towards their audience. And those are the 7 effective communication elements for business. So we're going to talk about these in a little bit of detail, but correctness is using the right level of language, checking for accuracy of facts before they're said, and they're choosing non-discriminatory language. So when you review, like I said, the videos that I put out there, the majority of people that speak are correct with what they're saying in general. They're complete. They provide all the necessary information that you need. They answer all questions that are asked as best they can, and they give something extra when desirable. So a lot of times, especially in leadership forums, there will be a question and answer session at the end of the speaking engagement where people can give extra if someone has a deeper dive question about the process that they went over. Speakers are also concise. I can't highlight this enough. Effective leaders are also concise, so they don't drown out the process with too much communication. I see this way too often. Make sure your speech is concise and you get to your point quickly rather than just drowning out your audience with useless information that they honestly don't really care about. You make sure you're clear with your speech. Of course, I think this goes hand in hand with clarity. Of course, clearness, clarity, same thing. So you want to make sure you're accurate and you deliver an effective focal point, and rather than going off on a tangent and talking about something other than what your topic is about. And of course, that goes along with conciseness as well. Be concrete. Use specific facts and figures, put action into words. Usually tell a story as long as it doesn't go off on a tangent. Use vivid images. We talk about this in regards to, PowerPoint presentations. There's an effective way to give a PowerPoint presentation, and there's also ineffective ways. So, I highlighted that a little bit in your APA guidelines. So make sure you look at that. You don't want to give a lot of information in your PowerPoint. So I would say this PowerPoint that was created actually for this MBA lecture has too many words. There's way too many words in this PowerPoint piece right here, and I'm highlighting it right now. But I'm not going to sit here to read this to you, and you're not going to sit there and read it as I'm speaking. If you really want your audience to concentrate on the speaker, make sure you don't have a lot of words, and it's really specific to what verbal communication is coming out. So effective leaders know how to get their audience to follow them along the path or journey they want them to go down. Courtesy is a huge thing. Make sure that you're courteous to others and you're aware of certain situations that may or may not have happened. So a lot of times, especially in hospital administration like I'm in, you want to make sure maybe there was a merger before and there's a lot of bad blood between two organizations. You want to make sure you know that type of information before you go into a speech and just insult or irritate or make people angry about the speech that you're given, or an update potentially. So you want to be careful of that. Consideration. Be careful when you say you. Make sure you say I and we. We talked about that a little bit in the past. So when you're pointing to someone in response to a certain thing that you want improved, so I would be careful with saying like you have bad financial scores within your organization. You have this, you have that. You want to say we, especially because you want them to feel like you are a part of the problem or a part of the solution, and you want to be there to help people as you guide them along the path. So leaders are really good at that. They use we instead of using you or I. They emphasize the broader collective instead of just the minority. All right. Make sure you don't plagiarize too. I think that's really important. Plagiarism, of course, is an act of using someone else's words without their written consent or permission. Another thing that's also important, effective communication skills also have elements outside of verbal speech. So at times you can give a memorandum. This goes out to a large audience. It can be informal, but with an email, and then gives an update that needs a little bit of an approval stamp from usually executive leaders. Business letters, it's not something we're really going to go over here, but effective communicators, especially on leadership positions, offer business letters at times, usually good, bad news, but it offers updates that are needed. Verbal and nonverbal communication, we're not going to highlight this. You're already aware of the effectiveness between the two. This is really interesting, 7 universal facial expressions, so you can review this just on your own measure just to see what interest you find in it. Really interesting slide. Don't worry about these, it's just information. We talked about the 7 effective communication skills, all starting with the letter C, which is extremely helpful to follow. Talk about unethical and ethical behavior, workplace ethics. I'm hoping that you're aware that there's certain ways you act in certain respective areas, and be careful what you say, because a lot of times this can really play a role in how your future develops. Let's talk about personal ethics a little bit in communication. A lot of you probably have social media, right? That's something that everyone, I would say, almost has. If you don't have a Facebook or an Instagram or one of those platforms, you probably have LinkedIn. What you put on those websites can be important, and that's part of your communication, and it can be used against you at times at work. So be careful with how you display yourself on a personal level in relation to how it can affect you on a professional level. Make sure you treat others fairly in your communication. That goes almost without comment. All right. So that's all we're going to review. There's a lot of slides in here. Feel free to go over them as you please. But speaking of conciseness, I've tried to do a good job of keeping lectures under 15 minutes so you can go back and review them. But I had a lot of different videos, so you don't get bored with just my speech. You can listen to other effective leaders, effective communicators, and understand, maybe their process is a little bit different than mine, and learn from, you can learn from everybody in different parties. So let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for all your hard work. Reach out if I can do anything to help you along the way. Thanks.